Welcome to the section of my channel where I present you budget decks. The decks will be playable, somewhat competitive, but don't expect to top any event with them. In this format, the decks will not cost more than 50 to 80 bucks, and I'll really try to stick to it. And today, with a little bit of an experimental deck profile, first things first, we're looking at a Spyral deck profile, Spyral Lightsworn. It is, if you don't want to play Danger Spyral because you can't afford it or you're really sick of the Danger archetype by now, then this is a way to actually efficiently play Spyrals, but having side plays if you break and don't have like to put your deck, making it a floodgate deck, but actually do plays. It's one of my first link spam decks that actually is somewhat budget. And I think the most important thing here is the price, which the main deck itself is basically, like the price of the main deck itself is basically non-existent. Like there's no card that costs much anymore. Sleeper doesn't cost much. Super Agent doesn't cost much anymore. The prices went so far down. The Lightsworn cards you can all get without paying a lot of money. Nothing of this actually does cost money, but the thing that costs money, and it's actually within the price, I would say, like this deck, depending on what you get in the extra deck and so on, would be around 60 to 80 bucks, which is, I think, fairly cheap for a deck of the size. I mean, 50, you could build it for 50, 55, but you have to leave out quite a lot of extra deck cards, or you already have them, then it's obviously, again, a little bit cheaper for you. But this already includes Sir Yugioh. Those like 60 to 80 already include this card, so this is pretty neat because your other extra deck choices that would cost more, I've listed them down here. Obviously the Boral Dragons and the Nightmare Unicorn, those are quite the expensive cards. Obviously another Boral, like we seem to have a pattern here that the Boral cards are not as cheap as you want to, but if you already have them or if you want to run them, then you can do that. And now let's talk a little bit about the deck. It's more of a I don't know if this is the final build yet. This is the build that I came up with in the last few days, and I'm through testing. This is the deck that I had the most success with, but I think you can tune a lot on this deck, and I really, if you have any ideas what you can do, what you should do, and so on, then let me know, because I would really want to make this deck even more viable than I feel like it already is. I would see this deck as a go second version. I think you can pump out like 1 to 3 negates with this deck if you go first, but then it's a little bit more inconsistent. And I know I like this deck as a kind of way like, oh yeah, you can actually play around a few negates with this deck if you draw the right cards, and you actually can then go for the OTK, go for like the link spam and so on. There's a lot of stuff that you can do with this deck going second, so I kind of like it, but you'll have a hard time playing against like a 4 negate board most of the time. But what deck hasn't in the end if you don't side deck? So there's that. Starting off with the deck profile, I one Sleeper, basically nearly every card, Spyral card at 1, but the Super Agent, mainly because a lot of them you can only run at 1. On Master Plan, like this is basically the cards, like Master Plan is the card that you want to get out of your graveyard most of the time with the cards, with the trap card, because you can special summon one monster and then you can trigger it, but you also can summon it with the link monster, so that's not a problem. Obviously the Lightsworn Beast, because if you play mill deck, then this card is pretty good to go into rank 4s, and an important rank 4 in this deck basically is Minerva, because it's your draw engine, it's your getting stuff into the graveyard engine and so on, so I really like the cards. Spyral Super Agent helps with that. You can scout your opponent's deck, you can destroy its like your spell trap card removal as well, and it helps you with rank 4s as well. Wow, I said this word quite a lot. Raiden is a good card. I only run him at 3 basically, so I have enough cards in my hand for stuff like Solar Recharge. You don't have to run him at 3, you could go down to 2 because the effect is not as good as it once was anymore, sending 2 cards from your deck. Can be neat, but doesn't have to be. Now on Double Fearless, because she can only be, or yeah, I think it's a she, don't want to assume anything here, can only be summoned with when she's like milled from a monster effect, which is not happening as much because you have a lot of spellcaster as well. So I would go for Triple Wolf and only Double Fearless, especially because she's a tuner and you already have Triple Tuner with Raiden at this point. One Spyral Guild Last Resort, basically for your Sleeper. And now comes another thing in that you don't have to run. You could play a Shadow engine, you could play any kind of stuff in your deck. But I like the Fluffler engine because, first of all, you could actually profit from milling the cards sometimes, like Fluffle Wings, for example. You can get quite good draw off. Toy Vendor, you can search, and Fluffle Bears, good deck thinning. And Toy Vendor in general can fill up your graveyard with cards if you want to discard cards in your hand. If you, for example, drew the Rescue Mission, or you want a Spyral card in your graveyard, or need a Lightsworn card in your graveyard for Lumina, and so on. This really helps you with that. Triple Lumina, because you can actually go into a lot of plays because you will have a lot of hand advantage with stuff like your Toy Vendor and the Fluffle Wings and so on. So you can actually discard quite a lot. and still make profit out of those discards. So I really like this card. Double drone and double quick fix because they're 1 sadly. If quick fix would be a 3, hail, this spirals would be still back, I think. But it's not, so you have to run them at 1. I think quick fix is the more important one, but drone can be quite neat, so I like to run both of them. Double fluffle wings. Triple is a little bit too hard because it's sadly once per turn. If it wouldn't be once per turn, you actually would run 3, but sadly it is, so no abuse here. Solar recharge, I guess it's kind of a staple in Lightsworn deck, especially when you want to mill and draw, because yeah, that helps you cycling through your deck. 1 for 1, mainly for quick fix. Could go for drone if you want to scout your opponent's deck before going into your link monster, or even for getting fluffle wings into the graveyard to get draws off, which mainly it will be for quick fix though. Reasoning, because you run a lot of monsters that have different levels. Yeah, there's a lot of level 4s, but even if you have them in the graveyard, most of the time it doesn't matter that much, so it is kind of neat if you run one reasoning, but you don't have to. You could run cards like card destruction if you go second build, because then you can actually cycle through your deck faster, get cards more into your graveyard. Plus, you don't give your opponent that much of an advantage anymore, because at this point, if they already started first, they will probably have used most of their important hand cards anyway, and they'll be either in the graveyard or on the field, so you don't give them that much of an advantage. But I think reasoning is quite a neat card in a sense that sometimes it's like a good Ash Blossom bait and so on. Foolish Burial, obviously you have a lot of cards you want to send to the graveyard. There's Spyral cards, there's Fluffle cards, there's even Lightsworn cards if you need another level 4 on the field. Charge of Light Brigade, mainly search Lumina or Raiden, but I think Lumina is what I search the most. But important is the send top 3 cards to your deck, because that's another mill, plus it's not once per turn, so you can easily run it at 3. Toy Vendor is basically the same. You can activate as many Toy Vendors as you want, and if they're sent to the graveyard, you can add 1 Fluffle card to your hand, then you could go Fluffle Bear into the graveyard, and so on. And if you actually manage to draw into a Fluffle card, it will not happen that much, but then you can summon 1 monster from your hand. It's not Fluffle specific or anything, so you actually are quite set with this card. 1 Spiral Gear, so quick fix has a little bit more to search, plus since it's a middle deck, you'll get quite a lot of cards into the graveyard. 1 Spiral Resort, because you can only run 1, but it's quite a neat card. Plus the second effect, like at the end of the turn, shuffling 1 monster into your deck can be actually the saving grace in not decking out of this deck. That being said, you'll mill quite a lot in most cases. I decided to run double mission, the rescue mission, but you could run triple if you wanted to. You can cut some cards out, maybe reasoning or whatever you want to cut for it. But I think 2 was pretty neat, but I think you can build quite big boards with triple, because you actually can mill quite a lot. But if you then would start with double rescue in your hand and don't have any discards, can be quite troublesome from time to time. You have an engine that gets you for the extra deck into level 8 synchros. I decided to go for Scarlet White Dragon because it's cheap and it's quite a standard card, but you can do anything if whatever you want to. For the level 7s, I decided to go Black Rose. You could go against like Thunder Dragons and this kind of stuff. For the Moonlight Dragon, you could go for a Michael, whatever. You have the Dawn Dragster if you want to go for a Spell Trap card negate, and so on. Like, there's a lot of stuff that you can do, but I guess you all know the level 7s that you have to your disposal. 1 Tornado Dragon, popping your Toy Vendor can be sometimes neat, or your Rescue if you need them in the graveyard. Also, it's another interruption against some of your opponent's decks, so that can be quite helpful. Baguska, since if you have 2 level 4s at the end of the turn, and otherwise you only have Link monsters, you could go into Baguska and lock your opponent out of monster effects for the next turn. Can be quite neat, so you can't recover. Minerva, basically Sarah, you could play her too, but this is one of the more expensive cards. I think $4 to $6, something around that. I would run her at 1, but you can run her at 2. It's a good draw engine, it's a good middle engine. What do you want more in this deck? You'll be going into this card quite a lot, and I like the card design as well. Sayuya, very important card. I think it's going to be limited at 1 point, so I don't want to include more than 1 in this deck anyway. But mainly you want to get it out once for like the special summon from hand, or maybe like the redrawing and stuff can be quite helpful. But it's not like bust in this deck and you're not abusing it for anything. So I think this card is fine. Curious, obviously, you can easily get it out with the Lightsworns, but there's also other ways that the Spirals give you, because a lot of them are Earth-type monsters, and can be quite neat sometimes, and not that hard to go into. But yeah, there's that. Plus, getting cards into your graveyard is always good. There's another middle card that you want to see a lot of the time. but you don't have to all the time. Cheap Link 3 is Deco Talker, but you can run anything. Nightmare Unicorn is probably as good, if not even better. I run Tri-Gate Wizard for that, having a Banish, and if it's going very well, another Negate can be quite neat. Start going back into your opponent's turn. Double Helix, a card that was kind of expensive, but is very cheap now. I think 150 max or something like that, or 2 max, I don't know. Very easily special summonable from the graveyard, so you can actually get your Tri-Gate Wizard going with this card pretty easily because it's special summonable by the rescue and it counts as super agent. So there's that. Tremor Phoenix and Cerberus, another discard cards, which is pretty good. Another spell trap card removal, getting rid of monsters, protecting your other monsters. You'll link summon a lot, that's quite neat. If you can't do any link monster, then Underclock Taker is there to help you if you need to link away some monsters. And then Karibu basically getting Quick Fix into the graveyard, or even getting Fluffle Wings into the graveyard. Both valid options, and if you want to secure yourself from your opponent attacking, then there's that. I hope you enjoyed the deck profile. I really like this deck. It's still in the work. There might be I might update this at one point, but I really want you to try it out, see for yourself, make a few duels with it. Like, it can break sometimes, but I hope you enjoyed the deck profile, and I hope you have a good day.